Welcome to Winter Sports Market 2025. New year, new gear. Let's go check it out. Jonny Moseley here from Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, hanging out with Matt Farness, and we're talking maximal lateral power transition. No, this is the Shadow. No, that's a real term, but we'll get into that a little bit. This is their kind of revolutionary new boot. This is the boot I was getting texts about like 2 years ago. Like, I love this boot. So you guys popped with this one. Tell us.
We did.
Well, I guess we should refresh because it's new, but it's kind of the same. So tell me,
Sure.
but let's just refresh what gave it its reputation.
Yeah, so this year the Shadow collection really gets new cosmetics, some cosmetic updates across the range for both men and women. But what really sets this boot apart is that we have two technologies that work together. The first is called the suspension blade. The second is the dual pivot. The suspension blade you can see on the back of the boot here,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
the dual pivot is actually a connection point that bonds the upper cuff to the shell lower,
Yeah.
down low.
That's really
Right.
interesting. That's
Those
great.
two technologies work together to give a mechanical advantage to the skier. And the net of it all is that you end up getting more power, more energy, more rebound, all with the same or less physical effort. You know, essentially we have created a longer lever arm with some new mechanical kind of interactions of the ski boot and the spine.
Yeah.
And anytime you have a longer lever, right, you get more force output for the same amount of effort.
Sure.
And so this will deliver more power and energy to your ski, let you ski longer, stronger throughout the day and fatigue less quickly.
Yeah, I guess I mean, now that you're talking about it, and I've seen it and I've skied it, and it's amazing boot. I love it. But I guess the suspension blade and the dual pivot system, they work together, or because you were talking about lateral, the suspension blade isn't necessarily the lateral. That's really front to fore aft.
Correct.
But also obviously bolting down two pivot areas also helps you front to back. How do those work together?
So the way that the easiest way to think about this is that on a traditional alpine ski boot, you have two bolts in the spine of the boot that connect the upper cuff to the boot lower.
Okay.
All of those fixed points are very concentrated or centrally located.
Okay.
Right? Well, in this new design, not only do we have the additional piece of plastic, the suspension blade, that acts like that leaf spring, right? But we have a connection point much higher on the boot here with an elastomer insert.
Okay.
And then we have these two connection points much lower on the boot, again, kind of encased in the elastomer insert. And those two are really what work together to create that longer leverage point, that longer lever arm in the back of the boot.
I get it now. I didn't realize, I had it wrong.
Well, anytime you start talking about leverage, people it's a technical story. But again, the end result is that you get more power, more energy. You're able to ski stronger, longer throughout the day, fatigue less quickly. So lots of performance benefits.
Okay.
But the thing that is going to check this boot out for most consumers is the really compelling fit. We've got an exceptionally anatomical shape here. We've got some technologies in the liner that are super unique, one of which is called auxetic design. Really gives you that natural kind of fit and wrap of the foot from the liner. So the boot is extremely comfortable, but still delivers, unparalleled performance.
And are these unisex, or is there a women's?
No, there's men's and women's.
Okay.
The men's, right here, I have the men's 120 flex right in front of me here.
Yeah.
Here we've got the women's 85 and 95 flex, but the range is a full range. We've got a men's 130, 120, 110, and a women's 115, 95, 85. Our women's product has a women's specifically constructed liner, women's kind of specific upper cuff construction. But at the end of the day, the technologies are the same with the suspension blade and the dual pivot across the entire range.
Now, someone might be like, wow, this technology is fundamental and it's very cool and it's really, to the performance of the boot, but I don't see the boa. Yeah. I mean, but I'm not partial to the boa, but why, if somebody says that, what are they like, why can't I have it all in the same?
Well, I mean, there's no reason you couldn't have it all. Sure. But at the end of the day, Lange and our kind of commitment to fit and performance, we really see BOA as just another closure mechanism. You know, in some instances it's more convenient, in other instances it's less convenient. We stuck with buckles on this design because if you think about a buckle, or excuse me, the BOA, right? We've taken what is essentially two different fit zones in the forefoot of the boot. So this buckle here kind of closes up, you know, the width across the forefoot. This buckle here kind of closes up the instep.
Yeah.
And with the BOA, right, you have turned what we consider to be two different fit zones, so both kind of the vertical axes and the horizontal axes, into a single fit zone, because once you start cranking that dial, the whole thing closes up and lowers down.
Sure.
And so in order to really address, you know, the ability to dial in your fit as much as possible, we wanted to maintain the two different fit zones in the front and kind of stuck with the traditional buckles.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. I think if you're into what the blade and the pivot provide you, you're probably a buckle guy anyway, so it makes sense.
They're tried and true.
All right, Jonny Moseley here for Peter Glenn Ski & Sports, hanging out with Matt Farnes. Get the gear before you go at Peter Glenn Ski & Sports. Have a good one.